Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Peter Ugero, and today I have the pleasure and honor of having Broc West on my channel today. Thank you so much for coming on. It really means a lot.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. So if you just want to, for people that are unfortunate enough to not know who you are, I know you're more behind the scenes, but if you want to give an introduction of yourself and your work, how you became the video editor of the Corbett Report, The Last American Vagabond, and any other places.
Sure. Well, the best place to start, I guess, is like how I got into the information, like this kind of information, this kind of work, way back. And like everyone else, that was the day that changed everything, right? 9/11. I was about 9/11. I was 16, 15 or 16. And like everywhere around the world, we were all there watching, glued to our screens. Pretty much as soon as it was happening, it was on every channel here in Australia. Anyway, not long after the first plane hit the first tower, on Australian TV, the news anchor, I would say 10, 15 minutes after the first plane hit the tower, they said, we believe that there are ties to Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. And just in my humble, naive 16-year-old, I thought, that's really quick. How quickly they kind of knew that and all this stuff. And that was my first little moment in life. You know what I mean? I just sort of like, oh, that's odd. Didn't think much more of it after that. Went back to my job and everything. And the next sort of big moment was in 2003, with the Iraq war protests. Hundreds of millions of people all around the world with the same global unified message: stop this war. This war cannot happen. And it still happened, and it still went ahead. And we know the unfortunate tale of that now, still going on, still ongoing. And it was that for me was the glass shattering moment where I realized, governments no longer serve the people in any really meaningful way. And once you break that paradigm, then you wake up and I started doing research and mostly watching documentaries, of course, like most people back in those days. This is sort of 2003 to 2007-ish, 2008, in that period, Endgame and Freedom to Fascism, even Zeitgeist. I did watch Zeitgeist back in the day, like we all did. And that just, gets you down the rabbit hole and you begin waking up and learning things and gaining a better understanding of how things actually work in the actual real world and not the propagandized cave wall paintings that we are subjected to normally. And along with that, I started also listening to podcasts. And back then, the biggest podcast in the world was the Alex Jones Show on Infowars.com. And I used to listen to as much of the 4-hour live stream, the daily live stream that he used to do. I don't know if he still does it. And eventually, after a little while, this Canadian, well-spoken young Canadian man comes on for an interview by the name of James Corbett. And I can't even remember what they were talking about, but as soon as I heard the interview, I thought, oh, that guy's pretty cool. Like, I like his delivery. Was not so, rah, Texan America that Alex Jones was back then. Obviously even worse now. But anyway, he said, I'm James Corbett from CorbrettReport.com. Went over to his website, checked it out, saw that by then, I think this must have been 2008, 2009, I think 2009. And yeah, I was instantly became a fan of his work and became a fan and a supporter of the Corbett Report. And just, took in the information and didn't think much of it then, but I just thought James was, someone who had a really good way of articulating things in a calm, measured manner with fully backed up sources and documents and everything like that. Next, God, this is all hazy coming back to me now. So fast forward to about 2011. By then, Corbett was doing Corbett Report Radio on Republic Broadcasting. And I happened to come across this story of a new American military base being put off the west coast of Australia that no one was talking about, really. And, you know, it was a pretty big deal back in those days. So I called in live to James's live broadcast, Call Report Radio, and we talked about it and talked about the story, and, you know, nice 15-minute conversation about drones and the Asia Pacific region in general. After the conversation, he emails me and says, hey, you know, you might have a knack for, you know, sourcing stories like this. Have you ever considered starting your own website or blog? I said no, but I'll give it a go. And at that time, I felt personally there was a bit of there was a gap in reporting about the Asia Pacific region. So in early 2012, I think 2013, I started the Asia Pacific Perspective blog, apperspective.net, it used to be called, where I would just collate important news stories from around the world about the Asia Pacific region. And we're still seeing some of these same storylines go on now with the disputed islands in the disputed seas, the Senkaku Islands, and all that stuff, which is just constantly bubbling up. Once I started the blog, then Corbett invited me on to my first live appearance on the Corbett Report, which was also Corbett Report Radio, where we talked about the blog and a few topics going on in Asia, in the Asia Pacific region. And then he emailed me and said, oh, we should start a monthly, weekly, bi-weekly show called APP, which we did. And that went for a few years together. It's very much in the same vein of the wildly popular New World Next Week that he does with James Evan Pilato, which I know everyone knows, of course. And then in about, I would say, sorry, let me backtrack a little bit. I had previously also traveled to Japan for the first time in 2012. And that's the first time I met James. The funny story, actually, in 2011, I moved from my hometown and I went on a van trip. I decked out a van and I went. My plan was to go all around Australia in this van and live out of a van and, you know, live that kind of life for a few months or a year or however long indefinitely. I ended up not liking van life after about 3 months, and luckily I had a very good friend who had a spare room, and he took me in. So I moved to this new town. Lucky enough to find a half decent job there. I hated the job, but it was all right. It was half decent paying. And every year I would save my money for one reason only, and that was to go to Japan. I'd always been fascinated with Japan, the culture, the history, you know, everything, the food, the people, geography. It's an absolutely wonderful country. And on my van trip, I ended up staying at one of these sort of, you're gonna laugh at this, they're called woofing farms, WOOFING, woofing farms, willing workers on organic farms, they're called. And basically, you can go and stay at someone's place, and all your board and all your food is covered if you do a bit of farm work. I was happy to do that. I stayed at this one place, and there was a Japanese woman there, and her name was Yuki. And of course, we started just talking about Japan and everything, blah blah blah. And she was telling me about her life and vice versa. And she said, "Oh, if you're ever in Japan, you know, please come and stay with my family. You know, we'd love to take you in for whatever, you know, however long." I'm like, "Oh, thanks. I'll think about it, sure." Next year I was in Japan, and just before I left, I emailed James and I said, "Hey, buddy, you know, coming to Japan for the first time. Would love to meet you if possible, you know." And it just so happens that James lives in the same city in Western Japan that my Japanese friend's family lives. So that was a great little synchronicity there. And yeah, so we met that time, went back to Australia. I was still working full time and then working all the other hours on the blog. Went back in 2013, and it was in 2013 where James and I first, we sat down and recorded the Make Your Own Media podcast, which you know, this is basically an extension of that podcast now. You know, this is, as you can see, back then I wasn't yet the full-time video editor. for Corbett Report. But I would recommend everyone go back and watch that podcast now, because this is what it's about, you know, making your own media like you're doing right now, Nick, you know. And then, so yes, 2013, we recorded the podcast, met up again, had a great time, as we always do in Japan. Go back to Australia, work very hard, save all my money, go back again in 2014. And it was in 2014 that James, we met up again. He took me out for lunch, sat me down and said, would you like to come on board as a part-time video editor for the Corbett Report? Now, you have to remember, at that time, I'm still driving trucks or working for a plumbing supply company that I used to work for, you know. I'd never done any video editing before. The only experience I had was with the blog, but that's not really video editing or anything like that. You know, that's just blogging. And I said, James, I'm flattered, but I don't have any experience. And he goes, well, neither did I when I started. And, you know, okay. So I said yes. Went back to Australia. James paid for me to do a couple of days of like basically Adobe Premiere video editing crash courses, which I did. Learned as much as I could, but wasn't really a lot. And then, yeah, James slowly but surely started sort of giving me smaller jobs to do, then bigger jobs to do, and bigger jobs to do. And then by 2015, in the middle of 2015, he asked if I wanted to come on full time, and I, of course, jumped at the chance. I quickly found out doing video editing that I love it. You know, I'm one of those weird people who likes the slow, tedious process of video editing because I really enjoy the final creation. But that's sort of it in a nutshell. Yeah, and I've been working for Corbett pretty much full time ever since 2015. And it's my, you know, living and working my dream job. Yeah, that's it.
That's excellent. I can't believe that you go to visit Japan and he ends up being in the same town. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Very small world for that. So how did you get into The Last American Vagabond? Was that an outreach on your part, or was it where Ryan said, I know he's doing a great job over here, I'm going to reach out to him?
That's exactly how it happened. I've only just come on board with Ryan and the gang at TLAV. I think I've been there about a month and a half now. And yeah.
Wow.
And my main job at the moment, anyway, with that is just basically, as you know, Ryan does long form live streams anywhere from an hour and a half to 4.5 hours.
Yep.
Not everyone has the time in the day to watch all that.
Yeah.
So we're selecting important clips from each week and then uploading them, and then I'm editing them up. But yeah, it's great, honestly, to be working for the Corbett Report and The Last American Vagabond. I honestly consider those two outlets the tip of the spear in terms of actual, genuine, independent journalism and media. You know, yeah.
Yeah, just seeing the amount of links and the amount of sources that both of them have. And even Ryan, when I had him on my channel as well, he was saying how James Corbett was a huge inspiration for him in terms of like just listing all that stuff, and especially James with the transcripts and all that stuff. It just makes it so much easier. And then, yeah, I did see that. I didn't realize you just started on TLAV, but I have seen those extra clips, and he did mention that you were on there, so I was watching some of them. And it's just, it makes it so much better because you get the photos, you get the lines that he's talking about. It just gives a nice visual. And because I've been video editing for a bit. I've been doing Camtasia. I'm picking up on what you're doing, like the slow pans, and then just add like a little bit of blurring when you add in the stuff. And so I'm like, okay. And I could see how it takes so much time. For sure, like getting the clips or the photos and just downloading them and then putting them into the software, and there's so much to it. So I definitely know how that is. So it's really impressive to see that. So you basically answered the second one, or partly. So what got you into video editing in the first place? It was just because of James Corbett and him just promoting or telling you that he thinks that you can do it, or did you have like any sort of inclination or any sort of like creative spark as a kid, or?
I've played in bands pretty much since I was about 12 or 13 years old, so I was creative in that way. So I was audio creative, not really visual. In fact, I mean, this is one thing James teases me for all the time. I do video editing is my job, and I live and breathe it. But I'm actually not really a huge movie guy. I'm more of a video gamer, or I like to watch, certain sports or whatever. I'm not a huge movie guy, you know what I mean? However, I do watch what I do watch. I watch with different eyes now. It was really, I don't know, like a lot of people, I was in a rut, in a job I hated, had to pay bills, and didn't really have the time to think about anything. Of course, I used to think a lot about what I wanted to do, but I just couldn't figure out what it was. I tried many different things, and I don't know. I guess James just giving me that opportunity and giving me that push. It clicked for me, and I just, as the old cliche says, if you find a job you love, you don't really work a day in your life. Now, saying that, working for James Corbett and Ryan Christian, you do work. It's work, but I still love every minute of it, man. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I guess I was happy to be. I just lucky enough to be pushed into it, and it turns out I really like it, and I seem to have a little bit of a knack for it. I don't know.
And then especially having someone that you have admiration for, and then that being also the catalyst, and him saying, I think you can do it, or just you can. And I didn't do it. I didn't know how to do it at first. So it's like, for me, that would be a very good motivator for sure. And it's just like me having people that I admire on my channel. It just inspires me to just keep going and to just keep trying to improve or change the way I talk or the way I present things.
Yeah, sure.
So
I mean, everything there's there's no real secret to it. It's just doing it. That's really it. Yeah.
Yeah, because my brother was able to get me Camtasia for free. It was like an older version of it, and I unfortunately changed the operating system, so I don't have it anymore. But I did Mark Passio's first podcast, and I visualized the whole thing. So it's an hour and 53-minute podcast, but yeah, it took me like 2 weeks to do that. So it was. And so I definitely, as I was going through it, I could see how my skills improved just from the beginning to the end. Like I was figuring out things and I was doing it quicker and easier.
That's right.
And but it is time consuming. It's a lot to it. So, so one of the questions I was going to ask was, what software do you use, and what software would you recommend for beginners or pros?
So when I first started with Corbett, we were at that time still using Final Cut Pro 10. Final Cut 10, which is great. I don't even know if it's still around that much anymore, if it's still updated or anything. That was a good basic entry-level software. Doesn't have a huge amount of bells and whistles or anything like that, but it was a stable, good running software which you could get your head around pretty quickly as a beginner. Once my first big documentary that I worked on for Corbett was How Big Oil Conquered the World, and I think just before that we decided to switch to Adobe Premiere. Look, yeah, I mean they're expensive. Their tech support's very average when you need it. I'm currently on a new update of it, and it seems to be stable for now, but they always seem to do something that makes it unstable a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Those are the only two software that I've ever used, so it's hard for me to recommend other ones. I've heard DaVinci is promising and good, and there is an open source one, but the name escapes me right now. But yeah, I guess the good thing about all of these software or these editing software and programs is there's free tutorials on the basics and on advanced and on intermediate stuff all over the web as well, So basically, if you decide to go whichever path, you can get up to speed pretty quickly and learn the differences between each programs.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, because I have never used either of those. I've only used Camtasia, and I used Filmora Demo Creator, and with Camtasia I had the free version or the full one, but it was an older version. And for me as a beginner, it was actually pretty good. I feel like it was the UI was good. It was pretty simple. Yeah. It didn't seem too complicated. adding images and all that stuff, doing the zooming and panning and stuff. It didn't seem too hard. Transitions were easy.
Yep.
All that stuff was pretty simple. So for people that are beginning, I know Camtasia is like $250, so I'm not sure how much is Adobe. Do you know offhand?
It's a yearly subscription.
Oh,
yeah.
So you can't even buy a full on.
Not anymore. Welcome to the wonderful world of Adobe, mate.
Ah, man.
Yeah, it's a subscription, and you download from the cloud. Blah blah blah. It escapes me right now. It's upwards of near $1,000 per year US.
Holy hell!
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the reason also is because with that you obviously get Photoshop and you get Illustrator, and for me when I'm creating some of the more intricate visuals for for documentaries and for the visual only podcasts, I do sometimes create those in After Effects as well.
Okay.
But I'm still an absolute rank amateur and novice when it comes to After Effects, so I'm still really learning my way around that program. In fact, when I did those 2 crash courses, the teachers, I put my hand up and I said, how long honestly to really get your head around After Effects, And he's like, I know some guys who've been at it every day for 10 years and they still haven't got their head around it. So a long time.
Okay. Well, that's, I guess, I mean, your life's a learning experience the entire time. So I guess it makes sense that still, but that's kind of surprising. They haven't even gotten their head around it after 10 years. That's crazy. Cause I haven't used basically anything really. Like for my thumbnails, I use, Filmora. What is it? Filmora I forgot what it's called, but just easily do this little split screen, just add the stuff and put the text. So it's pretty simple, but I'm sure like I would like to do the more sophisticated ones because I know people make some phenomenal thumbnails. So
yeah. I mean, even for me personally, I think my thumbnails aren't my greatest strength, but I do my best.
Yeah, I think they're good for sure. I like them. So what are some tips and tricks you would recommend for people just starting out or looking to get into video editing? Is there anything that you think that would that are like around the edges of video editing that they could start, or something that would help them get into it? Or
I mean, basic photography and filming, and getting yourself a cheap or even free like you did, free little program, and just like I said, I mean, if you're totally lost, there will be a tutorial online. The Library of Alexandria, as Corbett calls it. There will be a tutorial online somewhere, very easy to find. Beginner tips for blah blah blah. And away you go, and you just follow it. I still do that. I do that a couple of times a week if I'm trying to figure out something or yada yada yada. Okay, I'll go and see if there's a tutorial for it. Yep. Oh, yep. Sweet. There it is. And then you learn. And the main thing, obviously, with video editing, like anything, like a guitar, like if you're learning to play a new sport or anything, just practice, repetition, learn by doing. Learn by doing is the best advice I can give. I can't give any really specific editing advice because what you're editing is going to be completely different to what I'm editing, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, everything's right there at your fingertips on the World Wide Web still, for now at least. So that's what I would do. Learn by doing, repetition, and trying to fall in love with it, I guess, because you can get bogged down and you can make a mess of things, and it's very frustrating sometimes. That's for sure. But
yeah. And to go off that point, are there any sort of organizational tips or anything that you personally do in your own work that helps you stay motivated and not get burnt out?
Burnout. And I get burnt out, but it's a good kind of burnt out, if that makes sense, because of the motivations that I have and that I know James has. And our motivations are to get the information out there, to get this important information out there, and to make it to as many people as we possibly can while we can. That's my motivation for video editing and for what I do personally. And I know it's pretty much that's almost universal across the alternative media, in terms of workflow, I don't know. I mean, for every project I make, it's very simple, streamlined process. I have an audio folder, I have a footage folder, I have an images folder, and I have a projects folder. Every single time, the same way. And then it's very easy to get messy and put things where they shouldn't be. But if you can slow down and actually put things in the correct things, you are going to save your time. You're going to save time in the long run. You're not going to be double clicking and clicking everywhere looking for a file that you put somewhere you can't find. Just keeping things streamlined and simple like that is a good thing. Of course, you actually get into the software itself, and there's many different ways. You can lay out your screens and everything in your particular way, in your particular style to suit your kind of workflow. But that's really a personal, individual choice. But just, yeah, I mean, keep things as simple as you can. Create individual subfolders if you need to. I have subfolders sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I've seen what, I mean, I kind of consider myself not bad at sort of organizing these things. You should see Corbett, man. He has an impeccably organized archive and storage system that works for him, So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it's very good, especially with the folders and having that, because I've definitely had it where I was searching around for certain things. Where's this image? I thought I named it a certain way so I can find it. Oh, it's over here. Okay.
That's actually another thing that I need to improve on personally, is also name your files in a way that you can remember them easily.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing it like all the time, you have a lot of projects. So trying to find those and edit them up or do whatever you got to do. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for those tips, because that's very good advice. So I'd definitely like to get into your story, because I know you were in Australia and now you're living in Vietnam. If you'd care to flesh out that story and what really inspired you and motivated you to leave.
A lot of things, good and bad. I've always wanted to try to live in another country for a while, even if it was for 6 months. I've always wanted to do that, to have that experience in my life. And I mean, just once again, when I say I feel like it's a 1 in a million that I had this job, that I got this opportunity to work, to become a video editor. I can literally work anywhere in the world. All I need is my computer and an internet connection, and away I go. So, of course, as you might suspect, I did try to get into Japan to live and work. Unfortunately, due to my lack of college degree, you must have a college degree, even though it's completely irrelevant to what you were doing. Just I mean, Corbett's a perfect example. He has a degree in Irish literature or something like that, and now he's a journalist, independent journalist living in Japan. You have to have the college degree or some kind of degree to get sponsored to live and work in Japan. I didn't have that, so unfortunately that door was closed for me. And then I had a friend, a very good friend of mine, who was actually living in Vietnam, and they had been here for about 5 years. And they said, "Oh, well, if Japan's a no-go for you, why don't you come to Vietnam and check it out?" So I did. My first trip was in 2017, and I came to the little small city I'm at now. Absolutely loved it. Fell in love with it. I was like, "Oh, this place is pretty good. Maybe this could be something here." I was here for 3 weeks initially, and then I went to a place in the middle of Vietnam called Hoi An. It's a very, very popular tourist destination. If you like tourist places, it's pretty cool, but it's not personally for me. But I thought I'd go there to check it out anyway for the first time. And I ended up getting violently food poisoned, really badly food poisoned. Ended up going to the hospital for 2 days or whatever. And it was during that time I'm like, I'm never coming back to Vietnam again, because it was really horrific food poisoning, man, I got to tell you. Anyway, so I leave Vietnam, go back to Australia. I say to my parents when I went back to my hometown, like, I'm never going to Vietnam, man. Like, it's a nice city, but if I'm going to get that sick from eating the food there, bro, I'm not doing it. I don't know what happened. I changed my mind about 6 months later and just went, "Yep, I'm moving to Vietnam." just a random, I don't know, just a spur of the moment thing. I was living back in my hometown at the time. I'd already lived there 27 years of my life. I kind of felt I was stagnating a bit in my own personal growth, my own personal journey. I had this great job, and that I loved, and that's important that I knew was doing, having all those things. But yeah, so well, that little town, I was there for the first 3 weeks was really good. So I moved here in March of 2018, and I haven't left since. I'm now very happily married and have a beautiful little boy. And there's a great community of expats here from all around the world, offshore oil rig workers and English teachers, and me, the kind of outlier doing crazy videos online, as most of them say. But no, they're all good. It's a really good little community here, and the cost of living here is really great compared to Australia, anyway. So that's a big plus. I of course miss my family and my friends back home, and we would have gone back to visit many times already if it wasn't for this friggin' COVID world order that we're currently sort of getting steeped in more and more every day. But yeah, I feel lucky I got out of Australia when I did, to be honest. Australia seems, they seem to have gone the hardest out of almost anywhere in the world in terms of their lockdown measures compared to the amount of actual cases in the population. It was pretty low, really low, to be honest. Vietnam's even lower, amazingly. But yeah, it's unfortunate I can't get back to see them yet, but hopefully there'll be a way. But right now, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's really crazy out there, especially Australia. And I didn't realize that you moved from Australia that long ago. I thought it was just like a recent thing, like maybe within the last year or so, because I didn't realize that had happened. Good for you, though. I'm glad that you are not there. It's definitely really alarming what's going on there. So what are your thoughts, if you want to care to flesh it out more, about Australia and what your thoughts are on that? Maybe if there's any like stories or something like that your families happen to go through or anything. Have they been a target of anything, or is your family aware of what's going on, or are they more on the opposite end of the spectrum of your mindset?
I mean, I haven't been there physically for 3 years. It's hard to say. I mean, we talk obviously, but they're honestly more interested in seeing little videos of their grandchild, than talking about the intricacies of the vaccine rollout or whatever, or of the coronavirus, or of anything, of vaccine passports or all this crap that we're dealing with. I think they understand. I know they're proud of what I do. They don't fully understand everything, I guess. They're just from that generation. I do try to tell them, guys, please turn off the morning TV. Like we have the same in Australia, like in all Western democracies or under the Commonwealth, we have the Good Morning Australia and Today and all that absolute garbage propaganda that is just beamed out 24/7. And it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Before I was mentioning that I watch a few sports. I watch the Australian Rugby League, the national NRL, it's called, and we get the Australian streams here in Vietnam. And for the first time in a long time, I was actually seeing the Australian commercials, what they've become. You know what I mean? The Australian advertisements, and it's horrific to me. The propaganda is so full on and so crazy, even more so than when I left. I sort of saw the writings on the wall a fair bit, but man, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be there, but I guess like most people, it sort of just washes over them and they go about their daily lives and everything. But I think they understand. All I ever say to them is, guys, please watch my videos, and they do. If you want to know about this topic, or watch this guy, or listen to Media Monarchy, or blah blah, any of the things, And as I say, you lead a horse to water, but.
Yeah, it's very good. So what are their thoughts on your videos? Like, because obviously they know that you're the one that edited them and all that stuff. What do they have to say?
Oh, they think it's amazing. They said, like, did you really create the visuals and do all this stuff. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, and even from some of my friends that it's like, dude, it's, you know, like pretty cool stuff. Even whether they disagree with the content or not, most of them are on board, to be honest, but just not as they're sort of dipping their toes from Normieland into where us crazy conspiracy theorists live, apparently. It's but yeah, I mean, they just at the very least they see how much passion and work and time and effort I put into everything I do, video editing wise, and they think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's awesome that you're getting some encouragement from them, even if they potentially don't agree with the content itself. The fact that they just still pat you on the back and say that's excellent, keep doing it. It's great.
But honestly, you know, like what I get more satisfaction out of is hearing from people like you, and for hearing from people, from complete strangers all around the world. And I do get emails, and I do get little messages on Twitter or whatever, you know, just saying, hey man, keep up the good work. Really appreciate your video editing. That to get that from complete strangers, and to hear how much that's impacted the information that Corbett and Ryan and Media Monarchy and Whitney and everyone out there is putting out, and how much of an impact it's having, and to play my small part in that, that's the motivation, and that's what I get most personal satisfaction from.
Yeah, indeed. I 100% agree with that. It's excellent. Like even me, like even with my little rinky-dink channel and stuff, just getting people that comment and say, "Wow, this was really inspiring. Thank you for this. It really helped me out." You have a lot of courage for talking about some of your personal stuff, and yeah, it's really just fulfilling for me, and it's awesome. It's definitely a good motivator, and to help me keep going, and especially getting people that I admire, that I find inspiration from. Hopefully that helps out other people as well, and just. I mean, and I try to find interviews that they've previously done, so I can throw out some new questions and stuff along those lines. So it's excellent. And I know you mentioned in Vietnam you had some there's expatriates there and a big wide group of people. How's the narrative been in Vietnam? How have the people really been reacting to it in your neck of the woods there? And have you tried to do any sort of community building of any sort? Because I know that they have the Greater Reset.org, where John Bush and Derek Bros are just going at it with all these speakers, and I still have yet to really fully delve deep into that. But I know that that's one of the solutions, if not the solution, along with trying to be as moral as possible. I try to follow the whole natural law thing with no stealing and no murder, assault, rape, theft, trespassing, coercion, lying. Just don't steal in general. Just try to stand in principle, stand in truth, and the universe will kind of protect you in that way. So I think those kind of things meshed together, having that community of like-minded, moral people, is definitely the solution. So have you had any success or attempted to do any sort of community building?
Given I mostly, it's kind of crazy living here, because I mostly, at least my circle of friends, are either former veterans or oil and gas workers. Or managers and things like that, you know. So you really get a kind of crazy perspective from that. I'm pleasantly surprised to see, ever since the COVID happened, more percentage of my friends and people I associate with here more I sort of understand that, like, man, this what Bill Gates is doing, what mRNA vaccines, why do I have to take that for this virus that has a 99.97%, you know? So they do understand it. Of course, you get your normie NPCs that are just blinders on. I was telling Pilato the other day that just having breakfast or whatever at a restaurant, and one of the guys, who's not really a friend, but he's sort of an associate, sort of say hi to him every now and then, but he's sat down next to me and said, "Oh, have you registered for the new vaccine?" Registered for, what do you mean registered? He goes, "Oh, foreigners have to register to get the vaccine. If you don't register, you'll miss out. And then if you miss out, you might not get you might not get your next visa or whatever." I'm just like, and it's just like, oh my God, man. I just, you know, I actually kind of I said to him, I'd rather shove broken glass up my backside than register for your vaccine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but you know, it's I would say the mix is generally sort of similar to the rest of the world. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Vietnam's had such a different experience to what you guys have had in the States and to what Australia had. We only really, only had 7 or 8 days of sort of lockdown mandates, but they weren't really enforced or anything. You had to wear masks for 10 days, but then that's it. The rest of the time it's been pretty business as usual, apart from no international travel, which is still absolutely sucks and it's not acceptable, and we shouldn't be taking it, but here we are. But I've got to say I've been pleasantly surprised. I've had a couple of people come up to me and say, "Hey man, you're Broc from Corbett Report. Keep up the good work, man. Like the information's awesome. Like you guys are having an impact. Keep up the good work." So, and that very rarely ever happened before. So the message is getting there, I hope.
Wow, that's crazy. Even people in Vietnam, they recognize you.
Yeah, I mean the foreign expats do, of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's excellent. Wow. I forgot you made some good points there. Yeah, I was curious about the masks. Do they do the same? Because I'm in Illinois, and they say it's required, and they have like the little things on the doors and whatnot. I literally, like, just 2 hours ago, I had on this gentleman, Jeff Weitzman, and he's a documentary filmmaker, and he's on Instagram, and he had a couple videos where he went into this store called Sprouts, and he went in one time. He wasn't wearing a mask. They asked him to leave, and he had cash. He's like, "Here, I'm just buying this. Here you go. Here's the transaction." We transacted. The cops were called. He was arrested. Charges were dropped within 2 weeks. And then he's been learning more. I'm not sure if you're aware of Peggy Hall, but she's part of the healthyamerican.org. And she's from California. She's really big into the laws and all the statutes. And they have no right to do any of this stuff, no authority to do any of these things, these mandates. So he actually went back into Sprouts after the charges were dropped, and he had a lot more documents, a lot more documentation, very calm, and he didn't even really have to show anything. They just kind of left him alone because they knew the charges were dropped. They knew they couldn't really do anything to stop him. So for me, it was a very powerful interview that I just did, and a lot of good information, a lot of good resources. He actually gave me a couple PDFs and stuff. But are they doing a lot of mask stuff in your neck of the woods, and do they really enforce it? Because I know Last American Vagabond completely dismantled the whole masks with the great mask deception, and then do they cause bacterial pneumonia? And those two were just incredible.
Well, and I mean, by incredible, Ryan was reading from government documents and health officials sources, like official sources. That's the age we're living in, unfortunately. And he's banned from YouTube and Patreon because of that now. That's freaking crazy. I mean, living in an Asian country, masks aren't a real new phenomenon. As most people may know, Vietnam is the land of 1 billion motorbikes. For every one car, there's about 10,000 motorbikes here, and a lot of people will wear masks when they're riding a motorbike so they don't get dirt or whatever on their face, and makes sense, I guess. I don't personally. I never have. If I get something in my mouth here, and I would say there's been an increase in that, but I mean, in restaurants, pubs, cafes, in public in general, no. I mean, some people do, yeah, there's been a small increase in it, but the vast majority don't wear masks, It's only the only places mandated here are in doctor surgeries, and we have one big supermarket here and in there for some reason. So yeah, that's the only mask mandates that are still there, but I don't think they're even really being enforced anymore.
Good. That's excellent. Yeah. That's good that you don't even have to really worry about that at all. It's very good to hear.
I've never been harassed, or I've never been told to put a mask on anywhere I go. So that's nice.
Nice. Yeah.
I feel for you guys in the States, man. Seeing and hearing some of the stories, man, it's just, my God.
Yeah, I finally experienced one of those people. Just last week, I was at a Walgreens with my friend Lindsay, and yeah, we kind of swapped paths in the aisle, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were supposed to wear masks here." I was like, "Oh, medical condition." She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure." And I was like, and I was waiting. I've been waiting for this, so like I was happy. I was kind of excited. So I wasn't upset or like angry or defensive or anything. I was just telling her like masks don't work. It can't stop a virus. And I listed off a couple things, but she's like, "Oh, are you medical? Do you have a degree?" And she was like, I think you're supposed to have one on here. I think it's required or mandated. And yeah, so she kind of left, and I don't even know where she went. And then we were checking out, and then she was waiting for us to finish paying, and then she's pointing to the sign, like the little stand up sign that they have, and like, oh, see, it says that you have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. Well, why aren't you telling them to put one on or whatever? You're not supposed to be in here. And then I'm walking out. I'm just like, take vitamin D, vitamin C. It's like, mind your own business. I'm like, oh yeah, I told her, I'm like, you got a mask on, aren't you okay? Like, what do you have to worry about? Doesn't.
Do you know why the cashier or whoever it wasn't enforcing the mask mandate? Because they don't believe it themselves. They know it's all BS, mate.
Yeah.
You know, they just have to do it to keep their job, I guess. And I understand that completely. You know, we all have to do what we have to do to earn a quid. But yeah, there's our acquiescence to wearing, to just blindly wearing these masks, I think is slowly fading. It shouldn't have gotten to where it even got at all, but it did. But I mean, I still don't know. I'm an eternal optimist. I think there is a silent majority out there who know this is bullshit, who are just coming along to get along. Sorry for the swears. Who are just, but who know this is all crap. And once you resist, once you take it off, man, it's good. There's more of us. The more of us, we need everyone on the I hate to use that analogy, but on the front lines. You know what I mean? To resist this, because it's coming, man, and tyranny is coming in many different forms and quickly.
Yeah. And last year when this whole thing started, I at that point I took a little hiatus from learning. I was kind of like burnt out from stuff, and going from Arkadelphia, that anarchist conference, and then coming back to Illinois, I was really I lacked motivation because of the people that I was around and my family and just my environment. And so I didn't do any learning. So when this kind of stuff came about, I didn't really know anything about it, and I didn't know the BS behind it. So I was wearing a mask at the time, but I was like, I'm not going to take a vaccine. Like, that's my line in the sand. But then it turns out that my company, Now Foods, they created like a little video short that said, oh, we're going to do temperature checks now because we had a case of COVID at one of our other facilities. So I saw the video. I was just like, I ain't doing this. No, this is my line in the sand. I'm not doing this temperature check. Rolling down my window to like my forehead so they can scan my head. It's before I can even walk in the building. Blow it out your ass. So I ended up quitting. Or I didn't quit. I refused it. And they said they were going to call me back. They ended up not calling me back. And they just said I was a no call, no show. So they assumed I quit, which wasn't the case. They just lied. Because it's all brand new territory. So for me, like I left that. I didn't have a job for a couple months, found another one. Then after a month or two, they did mandates. So I was like, nope, I'm out of here. And then I didn't have a job for a while. Now I'm doing like pizza delivery, and now I'm about to start landscaping. But with the pizza stuff, I basically don't wear it whatsoever. I never have it above my mouth. And it really sucks. I don't want to wear it at all. And I basically avoid it at all costs when I'm there. It's very rare. It's like 5% of the time, but it's like, I know a lot of people are have that financial coercion to kind of like, they have to like stay in their job because they have a family and they have kids, but that's what they want. They have you by the balls. Like with the stimulus checks, I didn't even use those. I gave one to my sister, gave one to my mom, and then I gave one to my brother. And it's like, I didn't even use it personally, even though I could use it 100%. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's just really tough out there. And it's really unfortunate that some people that, like you said, like they don't want to wear the mask either. They probably don't support it. They're probably dying to take it off when they get off work. And it just stinks that they're still doing it. And that's why, at the very least, us going into those stores, because at least luckily you don't have to deal with it, which is awesome. That's a blessing. But people in like the United States or Australia, just if we can try our best, like know what the laws are, try to figure that out and have more information, be tactful, be calm, be collected, and go into those places, understand what your rights are, understand they don't have any sort of legitimacy and authority to really tell you to do anything. And we got to do this because we're going to inspire other people because no one knows that this is an option unless they see other people doing it. I didn't know it was an option. I wasn't going into stores for months. I was having my brother or whoever shop for me if they were able to do so. I wasn't doing it. And then I realized, oh, you can go in there. I've gone into Jewel's. I've gone into Walmart's. I've gone into a few other places without a problem. Hey, I have a medical condition. It could get a lot worse. The cops could be called or whatever else, but that's where a lot more information can come in, and it can definitely help you out.
That reminds me of just last week, the latest episode of Solutions Watch, flash mobs. If you don't feel comfortable being the only one not wearing a mask in a store, organize one of these flash mobs or join one of these flash mobs, man. You know, they're not going to, maybe they come and arrest you all, but I doubt it. You know what I mean? And as you saw in some of those videos, it instantly inspires other people. They realize, you know, the sheep are sort of snapping out of the conditioning a little bit, even just for a moment, you know?
Yeah. And like I said, even for me, like I thought there was no other option, and I had a lot more information than the people that are unaware completely. So once they visually see it and they see that nothing's happening, they're not stopping you from doing it. They're like, oh, okay, maybe next time I'll come in and maybe have it down a little bit further and then test that out and then maybe take it off completely. And I know I'm so glad James is doing the solution stuff. It's really very important. Yeah. And like he makes a great point. Like he's talked at length, at nauseum about all the problems, all the ins and outs. So it's time to really shift that and get this car moving. And it's excellent. It's really inspiring, especially the greater reset and all those things. Great.
You were speaking of, you asked me the question about burnout before. I mean, if you want to get burnt out, man, talk about, you know, I mean, James had the Propaganda Watch series, and honestly, he got burnt out of following the MSM's tail and chasing it all the time. It's like, there is a point to understanding propaganda and learning it, but right now in this absolutely critical time of humanity, we need solutions, and we need them fast. And James is not the only one out there providing solutions. He's just offering a few ones that he thinks are worth looking into. But there's heaps of people out there providing great solutions, like Derek Rose, you know, and the Freedom Soul Network. Absolutely freaking brilliant idea, man. Like that's the kind of stuff we need more of. Yeah.
And I'm trying to get a group together. I'm trying to message some people that are on Freedom Cells that are in my local area, but it's I haven't really gotten any responses from anybody. Yeah. I have met someone that was in Wisconsin, but and they're pretty well prepped, but it's very hard to try to find people that are pretty much on that same wavelength and have that same passion and that same drive and are really that committed to it as well. Yeah. So, and that's what we need, is they have that community. So it is really difficult at this time for me, at least in my area.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Strange times indeed, buddy.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to see if you had any sort of like upcoming videos or anything, any big projects that you're working on. And I really appreciate you coming on. If you want to just let people know where they can find you, where they can contact you, if they want to send you some words of encouragement or anything like that.
Sure. There's always some big projects coming on when you work for James Corbett. I am not allowed to divulge such information at this point because it's all, you know, not ready for the public eye yet. But everyone knows his work ethic and how much work he puts out, and then in turn I put out indirectly. So yeah, always stay tuned to Call Report, and there's always something coming out there. If people want to get in contact with me directly, I am still, unfortunately, much like Media Monarchy is doing also, though, slowly weaning myself off Twitter. I still feel it has some kind of purpose, but I really don't know what that is anymore. I don't even know why I'm there. But if you want to contact me on there, it's just at Broc West, BROCWEST. And if you message me there, and then I can provide an email address if you want to do more correspondence. However, I will say I am kept extremely busy, so I don't have all the time in the world to respond to everyone. But I do appreciate any words of encouragement, and I'll respond to that, of course. But yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on, Nick. It's been great to talk with you, buddy. And man, I don't envy you starting fresh in a new podcast and in this kind of age. I think, you know, these are really, really difficult waters to get up and up and up with. But man, keep doing this, and I'm sure it'll work out for you, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Because I started like 2 years ago, and I was really late to the game.
That's okay, man. You got to start somewhere, and like we spoke about in this conversation, you know, learn by doing, and you get better, and that's it, man.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I just want to. Oh,
I always just want to finish on this point. I want to thank everyone out there who literally makes James's work possible, and then in turn my work possible, and all the guys and everyone out in the alternative media who are supported by the public and by people who actually care about this information and actually care about what's going on in the world. I can't thank you all enough out there. I mean, as I hope I've explained tonight, you guys on a very, very personal level changed my life immeasurably. because of your support of people like Corbett and everyone else out there. So thank you again, everyone, for that support. It's invaluable.
Yeah, totally. And I'll repeat it right now. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Broc. Seriously, you're doing an excellent job. Very, very much admire your work. Definitely, maybe because I haven't been able to do a lot of editing recently, but it just really puts a spark inside me to really just try to keep going and keep learning and keep improving. It's really inspiring, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. I'm glad that you're continuing to do so. I'm glad that congratulations on the marriage and the child. Good for you. That's excellent. I'm glad you're in a place where it's not wrapping around you, this whole new world order. So it's great to see that.
At least not yet, but
yeah. All right, but yeah, just God bless you and stay strong, and just thanks again. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone that's watching. And Jade, Finn, thank you for commenting and being a part of this live stream. It really means a lot to me. So God bless you, everyone. Take care.